If you are just joining us on Facebook Live, I'm Lauren Van Hemert, and I'm here with my new friend. And we've been talking the last 15 minutes off camera. David Adam Gill, who is one of the co-founders of New Ambassadors Theater Company in New York. So welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Lauren, for having me.
And I do want to talk about the theater because some of the work you're doing, especially nurturing new work and developing new work, is really exciting. But before we get to that, throughout the pandemic, I've checked in through these live chats with some of my friends, one of our mutual friends in New York. Talk to me about the tone of what's happening in the artistic community now. I feel like it's probably ebbs and flows just like it does here. So what's happening in the city?
Yeah, but from my understanding, it is, it's ebbing right now. You know, I've noticed, and I think it's like a personal thing, and it's also like a herd thing, that you need to give people their space because there's a lot of there's mourning of time lost. There's mourning of not being able to be with your crowd, with your group. The theater companies are, I think, the same in terms of when this first started. A lot of people were just at a standstill. We didn't understand how long this would be. We didn't know what the information we were getting. And if you noticed, like Broadway kept on pushing back their dates for opening, and that was because we really had no idea what was ahead of us. And I also teach playwriting, so I actually started teaching on Zoom before we started to kind of congregate as a group again and decide what we were going to do. I feel like, I think you said that, some of the theater companies where you are got paralyzed. And I still think that's the case here in New York. I think some companies are just trying to wait it out. They're not sure what to do. They're not sure if there's too much happening on Zoom. My philosophy is if you're doing it for yourself, then that's good enough. I mean, to keep your company active and creative and moving forward, to keep some kind of profile, out there so that people don't forget who you were. Especially because we as a company, we're just starting to spread our wings. We're very young. And with the 3 festivals that we did, our audience grew, our followers grew, the people that were rooting for us grew, and then this, boom, everything stopped. And I didn't want to lose that momentum. So we started doing readings of people's plays. We started doing readings of established plays. And in the beginning, I think that's what a lot of companies were doing until they kind of realized, okay, this isn't going away. We can get this organized and we can actually start producing things and staying relevant. And yet I know that there are some theater companies that my company members, like I said, it's an open door thing that they are associated with who haven't done anything, that they don't know. It's interesting because the production end on this end is you buy a subscription to Zoom. And if your people are interested and want to be doing something creative, they'll say yes, and you do it. And then, you post it, you get people watching, you start to build your audience again. But you can be paralyzed, as you said, and not know, if how to take that first step.
Do you think it's a money thing? What I've heard from some theaters here is they don't want to make the investment in doing live streams or virtual shows, virtual productions, in anticipation that theater is going to come back. So do you think that some of this paralysis that we're seeing has to do with money, finances?
It might, but it's not a big investment.
No. Yeah.
It's really not a big investment, and the payback, which is, again, being active, being creative, and maintaining the momentum during this time where everyone's kind of shut in. and being one of the options, you know. There are lots of things happening, and yes, you might not have all the people that normally come to your shows, you know, sign in and watch, but you'll have some people, and that number will grow. But I think the most important thing is to maintain a presence and keep your company active, because if you lose your company, then you're stuck at the bottom again.
I think that, and I also think that one of the advantages of this time of connecting virtually is this opportunity to build community. I've seen that even with my business, that there's much more of a community feeling around RDU on stage than there ever was. And I'm not sure there ever would be had we not been forced into this virtual space.
It's very interesting. I live near Greenwood Cemetery, and I've kind of adopted it as my place to walk because Prospect Park is always packed. Mm-hmm. And I have people from my company who are like, I want to walk around Greenwood Cemetery with you. So I go, they come out, and I always feel as though we've spent so much time together already. And yet it's the first time I saw them in person. It's because we have built a community, and because we are seeing each other a lot more. I think a lot more in terms of real, the amount of time that we spend together that's productive. Mm-hmm. We used to have like little happy hours and things, but that kind of fell to the sideline because we decided that we as a company had things we needed to do. And so the projects kind of grew. We are doing, two of our company members, Jennifer Downs and John Pena Griswold, decided they wanted to bring back radio plays.
Yes.
So we've been doing The Great Escapism. We did volume 1, and we're in the process of recording volume 2. And the first volume was all COVID related. So the plays, and it was really great fun. And even though it's an old way of telling stories, it's new because we've progressed so far from just radio, you know, with the ability to project images and things like that. So it was really exciting. One of the other things we're doing is something called the Corona Chronicles, which is a short serial. 5 writers are put together 5 episodes, and each season is 5 episodes. And we just finally, because SAG-AFTRA now has to get involved in everything, we just finally got approval, so we're able to move forward. But we're doing things that we wouldn't normally do. Mm-hmm. And we're telling stories in a way that we wouldn't normally tell them, about things we wouldn't normally discuss. You know, that wouldn't be part of the lyric of the song that we're presenting, you know, in this as a theater company.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to talk more about the theater company in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about you. Were you a theater kid? Did you write your first play when you were 12 about a toaster? Where does the theater bug come from?
Theater bug comes from me. I mean, my dad and my mother were always very into the theater. Mm-hmm. My father, especially when he got out of school, he worked for the Shuberts as a stage manager before he went into law school, before he met my mom. And so he really made theater exciting to me. I tell a story. When my dad passed away, we all put something in the casket that was part of our relationship. And when I used to come home from college, my dad would have a stack of the New York Times theater sections waiting for me. And it was always, you know, something in our relationship that no one else in my family had. So when I put it in there, my brother was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, this is something that you don't know that Daddy and I share. And film, you know, old films, a lot of old films in theater. So I grew up with such a desire and an energy and an excitement about film and theater. And when I was able to like step out on stage, I was almost too ready to do it. I think the first show I ever did was I did Damn Yankees in the 8th grade. But from then on, I was brought up as an artist, a graphic designer, a painter, you know, an illustrator, but that never left me. And when I went to college, I participated in high school, did plays and musicals. In college, did all the shows. I was a writing arts minor. And the comment I would always get was, your characters are really rich and three-dimensional and very interesting, and your dialogue is great. And I was like, you know, I should write a play. I understand the stage. I understand, you know, the concept, all the parameters involving theater, and I write good dialogue, and I create, you know, well-defined characters. So I just started writing. I was in my 20s, and I was living in Chicago at the time when I had my first play produced, and it was everything in the kitchen sink. You know, when you're that young and you're like you know, it's such a you know, you need to get everything out. You need to work out every issue. And it was done, and it was a very long play, and it didn't get the best reviews. And I kind of fell back into my shell and was like, oh, I'm not gonna write anymore. And about 20 years passed, and I had moved back to New York because I'm from here. And Tony Nation is my best buddy. He runs Actors Connection here in New York. And we played volleyball together, and he was like, you know, I'm writing a pilot. Do you want to help me write a pilot? I know you're a writer. And so we started working on the pilot, and he's like, you should have a reading of your play, because we had all these great actors around us. And I was like, ooh, now that I'm in my 50s, or my late 40s, let me take a look at this with the distance, with my brain as an older man looking down at the things that I did as a youngster. And I did all these massive rewrites, and everyone loved it. So we actually produced it here in New York, and it got great reviews, and it did really well. And, you know, I can kick myself for waiting those 20 years to write something. But as my friend Carla Briscoe, who I mentioned before, is one of the co-founders, I have more stories to tell, and I have a better perspective in telling them.
And you have life experience, life experience,
yeah. So I'm very thankful for, you know, the friendships that motivated me and kind of pushed me back into writing, because I do love it, and I have been nonstop since. I've written short plays and gotten produced long, you know, full length. A bunch of things have been published, and it kind of started the seed of the company in my head, and we can talk about that later. But so that's where I come from, and the theater has always been a very important part of me. I'm very everything I write has a theatricality to it that comes from kind of old school kind of fusion with newer ways of telling stories. And I'm very influenced also because of my dad from the older films that were very dialogue driven. And I think that's how I got my sense of my ear for dialogue is from those old films. It's very interesting. You know, you're never one thing. You come from all different places. And again, you shake up the box and things just form. And I feel very lucky that the right pieces fell together at the right time. And again, I love it. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. And it's a big part of me.
Do you think you've gotten a thicker skin since you've gotten older, as far as reviews and feedback to your work is concerned?
Yes, you know what? I have. And because I teach as well, I try to instill, you know, that, you know, everyone's going to have an opinion, and everyone's going to tell you how your story should be written. You know, I would do this if I were you. You should, all those things. I try and block that stuff out. You know, there's 80% of feedback and reviews that really has nothing to do with you. And then there is, and then there's that small, you know, it's not a small percentage. And I'm not saying that, you know, I understand reviewers a lot more as I've gotten older and as I've been reviewed more, you know. But there's when you get feedback, you know, again, there's a certain percentage of it that is probably very smart and you should listen to and you should take into consideration. But like I said, everyone has an opinion, and that's great. And a lot of times I will listen and I will say, thank you very much. I really appreciate, because if
You froze up on me.
they weren't, again, froze a little. Is that me or you?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think you froze up on me for a second, but I can
Okay.
hear you now.
Like I said, you know, you've touched someone, you've engaged someone, you know, and you should always take that as a pat on the back. If someone wants to talk to you about your work, whether it's, you know, whether it's the things you need to hear or not, you should be gracious about it, because they were moved in some way to talk to you about it. So yeah, thicker skin, more understanding, and try to just be open.
Any movies that you shared with your dad that jump out at you as being influential?
So I love screwball comedies. I love the films of the 30s and the 40s. His Girl Friday, The Awful Truth, the later even movies of Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, Adam's Rib, Bringing Up Baby.
When movies were movies.
When movies were movies, and when you know, when it was dialogue driven and character driven, you know, you get a sense of. I also have a music background, so I very much hear music and tempo when I write my dialogue, and I can, you know, hearken it back to those films, because there is definitely a tempo, and it is musical in terms of the rise and fall and the counterpoint underneath and all those things that make a really good piece of music. You can apply to playwriting, and you can apply to dialogue, I think.
So I love when I see a play, when I review a play, the plays that move me the most are where I can hear that rhythmic language, that musicality, even though it's not a musical.
Right.
Is that something that you can teach, that rhythm, that music, or is that something that someone has to, is that intuitive?
I think it's partly intuitive. I think with my classes, I try and do prompts. Like if I see that they're getting very verbose, and that what I call there are speed bumps that actually stifle or don't allow the tempo to continue and to move forward in a musical way. So there are certain prompts that I give that kind of focus on those things. And to the, like, I give a prompt with my students that is write a scene, and here's a grab bag of things, and there has to be a conflict, and the conflict can't be mentioned, but the dialogue can't be more than 3 words. So you can use 1, 2, or 3 words before the next person speaks. And a lot of times, you know, my students are like, oh my God, I can't do that. But it is the thing that sticks with them when they write later on. And they're like, this has completely turned around the way I write, because it does allow you to hear and understand the how to break apart a musical, like the tempo, and make sure that it moves forward, and that it doesn't get it, you don't trip over anything, and that you're creating that movement. Because you're right, when you have an audience that's listening to it, they're gonna sit forward in their chair. They're gonna be more engaged, because there's something there that they're connecting with. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's funny when I think about the plays that I've enjoyed the most, it's because I've leaned in and heard that rhythm, connected to that rhythm of the language. You also direct. So how does directing inform your writing? And how does the writing inform how you approach directing?
That's very interesting. Um, I think my writing has informed my directing. I try to not direct when I write. I mean, I have a set of like punctuation that I use consistently that allows me to communicate to an actor, this is what happens, you get cut off here. This is when you're clarifying something. This is when you're trailing off. And I try, because of the musicality of the dialogue and because of the pace that I'm trying to create, I use that. And the actors that I work with understand, because it's something I do pretty consistently. So it falls into place with them. So when I direct, I try and utilize that type of punctuation in the way I communicate to my actors. It's so funny. One of our very talented writers, her name is Erin Mohan. She got into the Broadway Bound Festival this year, but of course it didn't happen, but she did it last year. And she had started to, in our labs, to develop a play that was kind of a Scooby-Doo murder mystery. And I fell in love with it. And I said, if you do this, I want to direct it. And we ended up doing it. And it was very funny. And I pictured it, you know, half the battle is won if I can hear it in my mind musically and if I can picture it. And again, I liken it to, especially this particular piece, I made everyone watch His Girl Friday, because I felt that it wasn't necessarily that style, but I wanted them to understand how I was going to direct in terms of physicality as well as the musicality of the words and the lines and everything. And so it very painstakingly, and I don't normally do this, but it was such a great piece to kind of choreograph. Because it was a Scooby-Doo kind of thing, and there was all this physicality that worked really well, and the cast, we really pulled it apart, and when they had suggestions, and I was like, yes, that's great, we can make that work, and so we worked together as an orchestra would, or as a cast would. So in that sense, and it ended up being very successful. It ended up being very successful, and they were fantastic. And it was just a highlight of the festival and of my directing career. Of course, you have to surround yourself with actors who not only know how to work with you, but actually have the instinct and the fearlessness that you need, to just jump off the cliff with you. So yeah, and I've directed other things where it wasn't necessarily the musicality and the physicality of everything, but like I think, yes, it was the festival, our October Fear Fest, which is 8 plays based in fear. Some were comedies, some were like terror, and everywhere in between. And I directed a piece by Jennifer Downs. It was beautiful. It was called The Devil You Know. And the mood of the piece really struck me. And the comedy was built in, but there was a bigger picture. And so we kind of dissected the piece and just found the contrast between what the comedy and the terror of the piece, or the reality that the piece had to offer, how they balanced out. And so, yeah, I have to say that the writing is what influences my directing. Because I was a writer first, and I did try to, though I don't do it a lot, I try to write so that I communicate enough information to the actor and to the potential director that they understand what I'm going for, and then they can take it from there and move forward with it.
So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned the theater labs, and I want to talk about that. But New Ambassadors Theater Company is a relatively young company. Talk to me about the mission and that seed that was planted in your head to start this company in the first place.
So before I moved, I lived in New York, and then I moved to Chicago, and then I moved to Houston, and then I came back here. And when I lived in Chicago, I was a founding member of About Face there. I left before they started doing the big work, but I was there in the very inception of it. So we made all the rules, we made our mission statement. We went on this retreat one weekend and just got all that work done. And it made me think about the development aspect. Writers are always, they work alone. It's such a solo thing, but it's always very helpful. I think it's so helpful when you are able to have something read aloud and get feedback and understand whether what you've written on the page is being communicated. I generally try not to give any direction to the actors the first time we're reading it, because I'm really seriously interested in whether what I've written down is being communicated to them. So in Chicago, I did a little bit. I'd have readings of my plays, and we'd sit around and talk about it afterwards. And I was involved as an actor in a few readings of different things, and like I said, About Face. Even before I went to Chicago, I worked with a group of actors here in New York, where we would just get together and read plays. It was something we did, once every 2 weeks. Someone would pick a play, we'd sit and read it, we'd talk about it, we'd have this dream of getting it up, on a stage and whatnot. That never occurred, but the magic of it was getting together and actually creating theater where you didn't have to be on a stage. Everyone got to do something, everyone was a part of it. It was just magic. Theater, to me, is in the community, as you say. It's about the people who are creating, and yeah, it's very nice to have an audience. It's very important to have an audience, but that audience doesn't necessarily mean to be a bunch of strangers who come to see you. The audience can be the other actors who you're working with, and then have a discussion afterwards. What did this play mean to you? How did it speak to you? Was there anything in it that you didn't buy? Was there something that confused you? If there was something that you would pick that you would like to see further developed? These are all questions now that we ask in our theater lab. I came back to New York. I started working with Tony. We did readings of the play, which was very helpful to me. I went through this whole, a series of rewrites, and then I'd call people in and we'd read again. And the people who really helped me hone the characters were all people that ended up being in the play. So I also learned that, if actors are going to give you the time, and if they're the right actor for the role, and they're giving you the time out of their free time, they're investing in your play, and that investment needs a return. Mm-hmm. So the people who were in the play, and it was called Providence, that were helping me sort all this stuff out, ended up being in it. And then I started there's a wonderful group called the Playground Experiment, Mike Lesser. I started going there because it was, you're able to come in and have 15 minutes of something read with actors who are available to you. And again, it's very important to be able to hear the words that you've written. Are you communicating it? Did it sound right? Was there anything that didn't work? And so I was part of that for a very long time and helped them kind of develop a few things in terms of the programs they did. But the one thing that I thought was missing, that I'd always done in terms of the things that I had participated in, was really being able to sit back and have a conversation about it. Mm-hmm. And really make it worth the playwright's investment in, and it's a generous thing to put forth a piece, something you've written, and have actors come in and read it, and then start talking about it. It's very helpful. And if you phrase, our feedback is phrased in such a way that it is not, it's not telling the playwright, what they should do. It's all about the things, the popcorn moments, the things that really stuck with you, the turns of phrases, the imagery. What were the things that you liked? You start out with that. Second thing is, did you drop off anywhere? Did you have questions? Was there something that was confusing? Right? The third part is, Was there anything that you would like to see further developed? Was there something there that you thought, oh, that's really interesting? Is there a place for that to go? And then the last part is that, you know, we ask the playwrights, is there anything you want your audience to focus on? Is there anything that you are questioning in the piece that you want us to maybe focus the feedback on?
Mhm.
Does it sound realistic? Is it confusing how many characters are the voices unique? Are they different enough? Things like that. So when we started with the lab, I got a little ahead of myself. I hope I'm not just rambling.
Okay.
We were doing a play of mine. So one of the things I've always done with my work is, yes, I've done like workshop readings, and then I've done readings, invited readings. So we get the Playroom Theater and we do a reading of my play Irregulars, which is the one that's going to be done for the American Theater Critics Association. And I had people come up to me who had gone to see Providence way back when. They were like, I really want to help you. This needs to be seen. I'd like to help you produce this. And that was the other, and Carla was the director of the piece. And then Jeff Checkley, who is the third person who is a co-founder, he really came up to me and he said, I want to help you. How do we do this? I really like your work. Let's get this. So we went and we talked about starting a company, making it a nonprofit for, you know, reasons that we had that we thought it was probably better for us at the time. And then we waited because we were waiting for the 501c3 to come through. And we were waiting, and we were waiting, and we were waiting. And I was like, you know what? Let's do a lab. Let's have 5 playwrights come in. Let's do the thing that I've always done for myself. I know so many great writers. I know so many great actors. And Tony, my friend, Tony Nation at Actors Connection was like, and I have a room for you. So the first lab was really just, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. I generally leap before I look. So luckily, hopefully my instincts have always been, you know, a little better than I give myself credit for. So we had five playwrights come in and we had the work read. And because we knew all these actors, and actors love to read, and they especially love to read good work, we had a group of actors come in. And then one of the founding members, her name is Linda Giuliano. She was the artistic director and the literary kind of manager for a company up north called Axial Theatre in Pleasantville, New York. I had met her through a festival that she ended up accepting one of my pieces in, and she lives in the city, and she very much wanted to like make her home turf a place that she could be creative too. And she was the one who I asked, you know, you do this a lot with the work that you do with Axial. Can we come up with, you know, questions that aren't, you know, overstepping, but are just so careful and supportive of the writer? Because writers are, again, it's a very generous thing. It's a very emotional thing. The first time I have something read, I am in an emotional, you know, fetal position on the floor. You really need to make sure that it's a safe place for everyone. And she was able to kind of help us develop the way we phrase the feedback questions so that it becomes something that's helpful and not hindering and not, you know, off-putting. And so that first lab, people were like, when's the next one? And because we had you know, I didn't want to like step into it, and I'm always, I tend to take smaller steps in the beginning. I might know what I want, but I don't just, I try not to, you know, flood the market, so to speak. So we decided we were going to do the labs once a month. We were going to ask 5 playwrights. They each get 25 minutes because I think that in order to, I think 15 minutes or 10 minutes is a little short. And I was the one in PGE who was always going overtime. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, but I need more time. And I completely understood that and felt terrible. But I wanted to make sure that that didn't happen at the labs, that people had enough time to get the essence of what they were trying to do in the scene or in the play or whatever they were presenting, so that it didn't just stop somewhere. And if they went over, you know, I built in 5 extra minutes, just wanted to make it really easy and comfortable for everyone. And it just became a really, because we were doing it in person, because people were starving for just really good play development, you know, new work, we started to get a following, and people would show up, and we'd have a packed room. You know, there are some images on the website. The rooms are packed. There's only 5 playwrights, and there's, you know, maybe 15 actors, and everyone else is there to participate, to try and get involved in some way, maybe the next time. You know, we had a sign-in book so we could keep people up to date on the doodle to sign up as an actor, to doodle to sign up as a writer, and they just took off. And we kept them at, you know, once a month, because I just thought that was the night of theater. That night of theater was the thing to look forward to.
And I think it's so important, like you said, for playwrights to hear their words and to receive feedback in that safe space, nurturing the talent.
Yes.
It also sounds like you are somebody who really embraces the process.
Oh, yes.
Versus the finish. You know, I think as artists, sometimes we get caught up on that finished product, and I love to hear kind of about artists who just embrace the process. That's amazing.
It's where the magic happens. I mean, who was it? Barbara Harris used to hate doing a show because that meant that rehearsal ended, and you couldn't be spontaneous. You know, everything had to be set. And I kind of, you know, I do appreciate the product being up on stage, especially as the artistic director and the producer of the work, that it has an audience that it eventually gets to be put in front. My commitment to everyone was, in the beginning, was I'm going to get you up on stage. I'm going to get you before an audience, and you're going to shine. But the process is, to me, the magic. It's the thing that I love the most, because it's where the idea sparks and ignites and catches on fire. And there's no other process like that feeds upon itself and creates such a special what's the word I'm trying to think of? There's a spell that happens.
It's a magic. It's definitely a spell. Spells. That's a good. That's a good word. So how has a pandemic affected a young theater company like yours? Because it really does seem like you pivoted very quickly to embrace the online streaming format.
Well, I'm not sure if it was because I was lonely. My partner is teaching at Notre Dame, and so he hasn't been around. And maybe it's partly because, you know, and I was furloughed for a little while. So I was like, I have to do something. But, you know, when I think logically about the steps that we took to start creating online content and using the Zoom platform creatively, I think it was because, you know, we are young, and we had just come off of the third of our very successful short playwriting, short play, I call them festivals, but, you know, performances. We did the first was Blurring Boundaries in June, and then we did October Fear Fest in October. And then we had just gotten done with Heartbroke on March, God bless you, on March 1st, before, you know, like a week before everything shut down. And we had set up I think, you know, you saw this and we talked about it a little earlier. We found a home. We're part of the WET, the West End Theater Consortium. We have a theater. I set up our dates for the next 3 festivals moving into next year. And all of a sudden the rug was pulled out from under us. But because I very much think about the momentum and the audience that we'd built, I didn't want us to just sit on our laurels and try and sit this out and say, okay, well, they'll be there when we get back. So we started meeting, we started talking about things. We started right away doing just what ended up we call Friday Night Footlights, which is just reading of a play. It could be an established play. It could be a play. We did my play Providence. We did Irregulars. We've done other work that had started to be developed within the labs, just to give people an opportunity to get out of the reality of it, and to say, okay, there's a place where I can go to be creative if I feel like it. I was very sensitive in the beginning. You're going through something. If I don't hear from you, I'll check in. I do want to know that you're okay, but I certainly am not going to, pull you out of, your safe place when you're not ready for it. So we started with that. We didn't do I think it was the March Lab. It was supposed to be at the LGBT Community Center on West 13th. That's where we had started to go and have our labs, because we just needed more space. And so we had to cancel the March one. And so we didn't do the March one. We started up in April again. And we, it was strange. The whole process of, okay, we can do it on Zoom and I can record it. We can do it on Zoom and I can go to Facebook Live. And that way people can watch it live. We can do it on Zoom, because we were having trouble with Facebook Live a lot of the people in my company always laugh, because as I'm switching from Zoom to something, I inevitably, hit a wrong button, go, God damn it. And they're like, okay, we know David hit, Adobe back, Flash or something other. I'm up on everything, but I still have that, I'm always hitting the wrong buttons. And I'm always doing that thing where I'm waiting too long because I'm not sure if it is synced yet. But then we found out that because we have a YouTube page that we had set up, that it was actually a smoother transition to do YouTube. And people could subscribe or just go to YouTube, and it's the same kind of thing. We make sure the link is available for everyone. But, it's not the same. The difference is that not everyone might come on the night it happens, but eventually throughout the weeks and months that it's up, we already have almost 80 hits on the lab that just happened last Friday.
Yeah. I tell people when I do these, don't look at the numbers, because people aren't watching live. They'll watch when they can't sleep at night, or they'll watch the next day during their lunch hour or whatever.
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's not instant. It's not, you can't liken it to the live theater where, there's a set of bodies that are sitting, in the audience and whatnot. There is the reality that, even last night, like I said, I wasn't able to sleep. I woke up at 2:30. I watched part of the lab. And so, yes, you do have people hitting it up at different times. The thing that was different, because we didn't know how to navigate it, was the feedback. And I think that kind of in the beginning kind of hurt the viewership in terms of the live portion of it, because we didn't know. Doing it live on Zoom, we couldn't have all those people be in the Zoom call. And doing it live on Facebook, how did we get them to understand that they can post feedback, but it wouldn't necessarily be discussed on the Zoom, because there's a lag and all that. So it's just recently we decided that we were gonna do the feedback within the confines of the audience that are the actors that are within the Zoom room, and then have someone on YouTube who is in tandem but with the lag, presenting the opportunity to give feedback through a Google feedback form that we developed, and being able to put feedback in the chat. So we're kind of growing, we're kind of figuring it out. Then I had 6 playwrights, because the labs were going so quickly, and I was like, let's accommodate more playwrights. When we got the feedback, back into the labs, it ended up that 6 playwrights is way too long. We have to go back to 5. So, you're adjusting, you're evolving, and it's
you're doing it. But
it's
you're
a living,
doing
breathing thing. You just have to keep on, navigating the pitfalls and trying to negotiate some of the things that you wouldn't really be up against had it be, if it's a live event.
As a producer, do you think that these kinds of these virtual live streams that we're seeing so much of now, which is really making theater accessible, do you think in the long term it's going to hurt or help theaters when audiences are able to come back? Do you think we're building up new audiences, or do you think we're building up audiences who are used to paying $10 for a ticket to see a live stream or going to something free for a donation?
So, yeah, I've thought about that. And I guess my philosophy is that live theater is so exciting. Mm-hmm. And it's so needed, and it's such an experience that's unlike anything else, not only for the audience, but for the actors, for everyone involved, that I don't think these are going to take away from that experience in terms of when theater starts up again. I think people are going to be hungry to be part of a community that connects in that magical way in a dark room or whatever the space is. What I think this does a good job with is, yes, making theater accessible, keeping people, keeping theater companies' profiles, keeping their presence known, and giving actors an opportunity and writers an opportunity, and any, we have with what we're doing for the virtual conference, we have sound people coming in, that wouldn't necessarily have the gig. We have a bunch of things coming together that give people an opportunity in a very difficult time to have a creative voice, to be seen, to be appreciated. And like I said, a lot of the things that we're doing, it might just be for the few actors that are involved, but my God, that's worth it for me. Mm-hmm. I want people to be valued, and I want them to know that their talent is a commodity for them. It's something that needs to be, if you can express that in any way, do it, because it's what makes it builds us up, and it makes us the special people we are. Theater people are incredibly resilient.
I agree. I worry about what some of the long-term effects of this thing is going to be for our theaters and for our actors, but I'm very moved by the fact that quarantine can't seem to squash creativity. So
yeah.
How has COVID changed the development process of the plays? Does it make it more accessible? Does it have a larger audience, a smaller audience? It sounds like you're perfecting the feedback process.
Yeah, we're perfecting the feedback process because, we do on our YouTube page, New Ambassadors Theater Company within RE. We have been doing, one of the things we've been doing is we've been doing company profile interviews. Mm-hmm. And so we have a very big company. We have a diverse company. It's wonderful. We just have all walks of life who want to be a part of us, which makes me excited. And so we're highlighting, we're highlighting the actors. We're highlighting all the people within the company. And a lot of them are saying, one of the questions is, what is your favorite moment? What was one of your favorite parts of being a part of the company? And a lot of them are saying the development labs, which really, we've done some really great work. We've done some really fantastic, and it is an extension of the development labs, but our short play festivals have been really quite extraordinary and unique and well attended. And that's how we've been growing. That's how we've been growing our audience, our profile, everything, our presence. So not that I was completely taken aback, but a lot of people have been saying it's a unique experience. The theater development labs that you don't get, that people have gone to readings and things like that, and that it's been, okay, they've read it, but there's not a lot of really in-depth conversation about it, where you can, and the thing is, yes, it's a safe space for the writer, but it's also a safe space for the people who are involved in the feedback. Meaning that if you feel strongly about something and you can express it in a way that's not trying to rewrite, then feel free. Was there something that was offensive? Is it something that you got caught on? Is it something that it's because it could be further developed? Was it offensive, but it was something you liked because it made you think, it made you have an emotion that you weren't expecting to have? So yes, so a lot of people said that it was the theater development lab, and because of the feedback portion, not only because you had writers working on new work that was exciting and new and unique and all those things, but the fact that you could express a voice, you could express an opinion, you can maybe give some feedback that was going to be beneficial and helpful. So in the process of, doing these on Zoom and doing them online, there was, the heart of it was missing. And so trying to figure out, as you said, trying to kind of shake that box and see what falls into place and works. It might take a few more labs, but already last week, last Friday was lab 29. It just made it more special. And for that, even though it went a little longer, and of course, right in the middle of it, we heard Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away, and it just, it was an inkling of what it had been, and that was very promising. So yes, we're going to work on a little more, but I think it's just, it's so important, because then it's not just about reading a play, it's about getting the feedback that does develop into something that, and as a company, we are playwright focused, we're play development focused. All the plays that we have done in our short festival, the main stages that we've done, the readings of everything, they've all been plays that have been new and developed at the lab for the most part. We've opened it up to a wider group of playwrights as we've gotten bigger, but with the preferential treatment, because the playwrights within the company are so great. And we were waiting for my play to be produced, and we were waiting for all that, and we were doing the labs, and I thought to myself, we have such great writers. Why don't we just get some of them to write something for us, and let's put a show on. And it was scary and it was daunting, but it wasn't difficult in the long run, and the payoff was immense. And it solidified not only what I had really wanted, which was to get playwrights work on stage, but this group of actors that was working so hard for the benefit of the playwrights, it got them on stage. And that was exciting, because it really started to solidify us as a company as a whole, and give us the first glimpse of what we were capable of as a community, putting all of our artistic efforts together and creating something that was magical and unique and solely ours. And so it moved on to the next one, and it was a little bit easier dealing with equity and getting everything. And then Heartbroke, and just when we think it's going to be easier and we have it all nailed down, the pandemic hits, and we're left with what can we do to replace it?
One of the taglines of your monthly theater lab is nurturing the next generation of theater.
Yeah.
So what does the next generation of theater look like? And thematically, are there certain themes and stories that seem to be important to this next generation of playwrights?
I want to say yes. When we want to nurture your unique voice, and we want you to tell your story. We have a very diverse ethnically. We have a very diverse company. We have people who are on the spectrum. We have people who have disabilities in terms of being able to move around. We have a lot of unique voices, And we have a lot of, on top of that, we have, because of what's happening in the world, I think things have switched. They've always been topical plays, you know, things that are happening, things that are important to the writers, things that are important to that particular unique voice of the writer and what they're going through in terms of the landscape ahead of them in life, in dealing with everything. But then now you have all these other things. There's a lot of political, there's a lot of racial, there's a lot of social issues, there's a lot of inequality issues that are being brought to the forefront. And it's not necessarily that they're all younger. There are some playwrights who are older, but they have the need and the desire to tell their honest story and how it affects them. So it's about, and I have to say that the plays are told in a very, I say a unique voice, but in a unique way that kind of stretched the parameters of what you would consider to be, you know, a proscenium stage. I mean, most of the stuff we've done, even though it's been on a stage, we've treated it as black box. We try and not pollute the stage with things that are going to take away the focus of the characters and the words and the relationships and what the message is. So even when we get the pieces from the playwrights and we attach them to a director, we try and tell the story in the most unique way possible so that it's not just the same old thing being rehashed, that there is something different about it that is compelling and vital to not only the theater company and our message, but to life and to connecting with people. I'm not sure if that made sense.
It does. It does. So is New Ambassadors Theater Company open to artists from outside the city?
Yes.
We have a pretty wide audience here at RTU on stage. So
yes, we absolutely are, and in fact, especially with the labs, we've been able to, like, we have playwrights again. They're in Oregon, they're in California, they're all over the place. We have playwrights in Texas. We have actors all over the place. And yes, this is absolutely an opportunity to, if you want to present a piece at one of the labs, if you want to be included as an actor, you can get in touch with us. You can click the link at the top of our website. Our website is newambassadorstheater.com. And there's information about the labs there. There's information about if you want to, if you're a writer and you're looking to have a spot at one of the labs in order to present your work and get real meaningful feedback, and there are those opportunities as well. And then as we've grown, we've opened up our we've reached out outside of our base in terms of playwrights who want to submit to the festivals. And we generally will post, like right now, I think, like I said, because of COVID and everything, we lost our season. We're focusing on maybe June 2021 for Blurring Boundaries, for October Fear Fest, the week of Halloween 2021, and then 2022, which seems so far away, but it probably isn't, in February for our Heartbroke. And those are themed festivals, but not so themed that we don't take the unique take on, you know, Heartbroke, for an example, was about, we kind of likened it to the candy that's still on the shelves a week after, you know, Valentines. It's a place for the broken. So it's not about Valentine's Day in terms of all the love. It's in Valentine's Day in terms of the people who didn't get the candy, who didn't get the cards, who might have had something happen that took away from the experience that they would have had, a breakup or something like that. So we try and tell the non-traditional stories of those types. And yes, so we have opened it up to playwrights and who have written and are writing and want to get into a festival. and want to be considered. So we do post when we will be accepting submissions. The other thing you can do, especially if you're looking to get involved, is our mailing list is on the website too, and we send the newsletter out every 2 weeks, and it has the links for if you want to sign up as an actor, if you want to sign up as a writer, and if we have upcoming events, if you're want to be encouraged to submit.
I will put links when I repost this on our Facebook feed and on the website, on our website as well, so people can find you. We do have a lot of artists, a lot of writers here in North Carolina.
Okay.
And there is a monthly group that meets Sips and Scripts, and I am going to forward your information to them as well, because I'd love to see some sort of cross-pollination or something there.
That's our thing. We also have on Facebook, our second page is called the New Ambassadors Bulletin Board, and it says right there, cross-pollination. You know, we as artists need to support each other. We need, if you have something that you want to post that is about you involved in something, you creating something, you wanting to be a part of something creative, we post it, because it's all, you know, it's a community inside a community inside a community inside a community. We are all connected, and we need to be supportive of one another, especially now. This is a really hard time. And again, I feel as though the more you can allow for creative opportunities for everyone, the better they're going to come out the other side of this.
Well, and I definitely feel that because we're all connecting virtually, the world is getting a little bit smaller. We're all, it's easier to connect, so.
Exactly. This conversation would not have happened, right?
Right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me for an hour tonight. I love these conversations because I get to take these virtual field trips to places that I love, like New York. And it gives me a bucket list of places to visit, theater companies to visit when we're on the other side of this thing. So hopefully I will see you in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. I was afraid that we wouldn't be able to fill up an hour, and I just yacked away, but I really appreciate the opportunity, Lauren. It was such a joy talking with you and having this conversation. And anyone out there, I hope it helped. I hope you now realize you have a resource and a home if you're looking for one.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do to support new work. And I will put all of the links so people know where to find you when I repost. And just stay safe and healthy.
You too.
And thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
David.
Thank you.